following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
YOLO, infidels, that's right. It's Hacker Hameen.
This is Al Schneer from the band Mo.
Hey, this is Corey Glover from Living Color.
And you're listening to EC Radio.
And you're listening to EC Radio.
Live on EC Radio with the Z-Man. So take the pizza out of your fat moron mouth. Sit back and listen before I give you a $5 face slap. You'll never forget, infidels. YOLO.
Disruption Networks.
Wacky Wednesday, people. And the Waxster himself is here, present and accounted for on this Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. Chris Mandry's birthday.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Mandry.
Happy birthday to Chris Mandry. Speaking of Wacky Wednesday, that's a wacky dude right there.
Yeah, you think?
This is going to be a wacky show. I can feel it. No, that was yesterday. What's up, everybody? Here I am. Good to see you. Z here hanging. How you doing, people? Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday. Joining me, as always, my tag team partner, my broham, my dude, my mans and them, Chicken.
What up?
What's happening, buddy?
What's going on?
You having a good day?
Having a great day. Kind of weather-wise, but, mood's pretty good.
Your mood's good?
Yeah, my mood's good.
Right on. Right on. And joining us in the studio, another old friend of mine, Mr. Urban Grow. My friend Mark Doherty joining us. Mark, welcome, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me. Glad to be here. Studio's looking great, by the way.
Thank you.
Love the remodel. Love the
thanks, man.
Like the setup. I got a lot of cameras looking at me. It's freaking me out a little bit.
Well, you don't even have to look at them.
We're on 15 different social media platforms streaming simultaneously. That's a little frightening, but okay.
That's a lot of stuff going on.
A lot going on.
We got a lot of stuff going on, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I saw a great picture of you and somebody who's joining in right now, Eric DeCarlis. Over the weekend,
nice.
You guys were holding each other. Like,
what's up, Gravedigger?
You were even thinking about making a punch
with
him?
Oh, yeah.
Crazy?
Yeah, no, he was getting a little wild on his birthday. We went to Turning Stone. They had a ring set up, so we had to go a couple of rounds just to level him out a little bit, bring him down a couple notches.
Did you?
So, yeah, for
you
sure.
Chicken that gets a...
Mad at you, boy. Mad at you, boy.
That's definitely a mad at you, boy. That's definitely... Eric is like... He's got like Hulk blood.
Dude, yeah,
right?
He's huge. Yeah, he's huge.
He should be in the WWE, that guy.
He's awesome, man. He's big guy, fit, built, right, and he's out there, doing everything with Fierce Foundations.
Yeah.
His gym, his facility out there where he's doing personal training, doing classes, doing stuff like that. I've watched that come about in the last 9-10 months that he's gotten that up and running and
killing it,
doing
it's
great
awesome.
things.
Yeah. Him and Angela, are both
absolutely
doing great things.
He's checking in right now. He's saying round 2 coming.
Round 2 coming.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, sounds good. You can buy me a steak afterwards, and we'll call it.
Wow.
I'll put it on my bloody black eye that he gives me.
Yeah, right.
Good confidence level.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
He could buy you a steak after you guys come out of the ER.
After we come out of the ER.
Yeah,
after I come out of the ER.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's gonna have to pick you up.
After he drives
from
me to
there.
the ER. Yeah.
I think that steak is going on the eye.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love watching his videos though, and what he puts his clients through. Like, it's a great workout. Chicken, wasn't I just not saying it when we came back from Clinton? I'm like, I wanted to have Eric come kick my ass one of these days. So we got to go up there and do a bit up there and just get a good workout in.
He wants to get his ass kicked, but I'll probably end up getting my ass kicked. That's how it works.
I like what he's doing up there. It's not your normal gym.
No. I mean, the work he's doing, the classes he's doing, the stuff he's doing with kids up there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've not seen that type of thing anywhere, certainly around here. And of course, I've been here 15 years now. I've lived in this area for 15 years, and stuff that Eric's doing is needed and obviously wanted by the community, and he's a huge supporter. I'm glad to know him, glad to know Angela, and there's so many great people that I've met, that I've gotten to work with, gotten to see grow in this area, and over the last 15 years since I moved here and lived here, and that couple happens to be one of them.
Yeah, they're a power couple for
yeah,
sure.
They're awesome.
Let's back up a little bit though. You're not from here originally?
No, I grew up down in Binghamton.
Did you?
That area. Went to high school and all that good stuff down there.
Endicott or something?
Yeah, Endicott.
Oh,
yeah,
is that where you're from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on.
So moved from there, went up to the Adirondacks, went to Paul Smith College right out of high school. That's where I met Hardiman.
We
were buddies at college.
That's where the connection comes in. Okay.
Yep, that's how we met. And then was living up there, kind of became a local after college and, enjoying the lifestyle up there. And
Saranac Lake?
Up there. Yeah, Saranac, Placid, that
Beautiful
area.
up there.
It's gorgeous up there.
Yeah.
And, I was working in restaurants back then, and that's a good place to do that. And, and also
to hang at the water hole a lot.
Oh, the water hole was our place. Man.
Legendary.
Oh, I love the water hole. It was so sad when we heard that the water hole shut down for a little while. And then some new folks came in and breathed new life into it and started bringing good shows there again. And that upstairs area that they have up there, up above the old bar.
Oh, yeah.
That, we used to see shows up there. And, I mean, great music that used to come through Saranac, old Saranac Lake, because it's just such a cool venue and a cool vibe. And so I'm glad to see that that's back up and running and running music through there now. And I was living up there. And then Chris and Chris Talgo and Tim were down here. And I didn't really know Talgo then, just from like coming down here to see shows and stuff, that I used to come down here and hang out with those guys from time to time. Talgo gets the idea to buy that house on Varick.
Yeah.
And then
the old
we
crack
started,
house.
yeah, the old crack house. And then we started talking about turning that into a restaurant back then. And that's what ended up moving me down here, was to do that with those guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what got you down here?
Yeah. That's why I came down here, was to try and open a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So we get started on that project, and it was like, it was a lot. I think, Tim, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what he and Chris have created, now with Taylor and the Cook, I think that was along the lines of what he was thinking back then, And we
how
started.
the gamey is though.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, that concept then, for a long time ago, we would go to banks with our little business plan and our little, bank account that looked like shit, had nothing in it, no money, no nothing. We're like 24-ish back then, and I mean, quite literally, we were laughed at by bankers when we were like, we're gonna put a high-end restaurant on Varick Street. They were just like, you're out of your mind. Get out of my office, please now. Thank you. Goodbye. Click.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, I mean, so it's come a long way, exactly. And but that's how it got started. We were trying to do that. Then we realized, we need to make some money. We wanted to do something with what we were building, so we created the catering company. We did that for a couple of years. That's what then birthed Titties, Wieners, and Buns, which was, the tent and the grill and all of that stuff. One day
the home wrecker, the home of the home wrecker, which was like was it like a £1.50 hot dog?
Well, it gets bigger every time you tell the story, So I think at this point it's like a 6.5 pound hot dog.
No doubt.
But yeah, Hardiman would take one out of the cooler. Later at night, this would start to happen where people would come over and oh, what's a home wrecker? And he'd pull it out of the cooler and waggle it in their face. Can you handle the home wrecker? So we were having a good time with that.
The joke used to be your mama likes a frozen home wrecker.
Yeah, exactly. So, we did that. And then, Chris eventually started Nail Creek. And then those guys eventually started, Tailing the Cook. And, I had gone off and I went back to school locally here. I went back to SUNY, was SUNY IT then, SUNY Pi now, and went nights and weekends, or not weekends, but nights and summers and all that kind of stuff to get another degree there. And then was lucky enough to do a master's program there as well. I mean, that's a phenomenal asset of our area, that, I think isn't totally always appreciated for what it really is, and so I went to school there, had a great experience, doing that, especially as I was like an older student, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a ton of fun. And then, eventually, I ended up starting another business and things like that. So, that's what, kind of got me here, and a lot of the things I've done. I've been really lucky. This area, Utica, Mohawk Valley area, has been phenomenal to me. It's been phenomenal to live here. The things that I've been able to do, I don't know if I could have done them anywhere else,
I originally thought you were from here.
Yeah, no.
Now I got your backstory, and this is great. So that's how you came into this. That was a great story.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, I think the highest accomplishment ever is still titties, wieners, and buns. I don't think you'll ever, compare to that.
Yeah.
That was a great time, So they had knocked down those two buildings on Varick. They're next to what's now Nail Creek.
Right.
There used to be two buildings there.
Yep,
in
where
the
that parking lot is.
Mm-hmm.
There was like an old salon there.
Yes.
Just a torn down building. It was in bad shape.
It was dumpy.
Yeah.
And so they tore it down. City tore it down. And then it was a dirt lot. And there was all this debate over what they were going to do with it. And so for a couple of years, it just stayed a dirt lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we were set up right on the edge of it. And people would set up behind us and like tailgate basically in this lot. And we think that, there's always a heavy police presence down there.
Yeah.
Good thing there is, right? But we think that the cops thought that was Chris's property. So they'd leave everyone alone, drinking and carrying on and shenanigans behind the tent. But the minute anyone would step onto the sidewalk holding a Solo cup, they'd come over and 10 cops would tackle them and like take them out, you know what I mean? And like give them a ticket, And so we were running like this little party on the side of his house basically, because at that point I think he was living there, And those were good times, We were just kind of looking for anything we could do to, do a hustle, make money, do something cool, in the area, and that was definitely, I think, one of the most fun times we've had.
That's great.
I think you guys were like one of the first food vendors down there too.
They were, no doubt.
And speaking of titties and wieners, I found two people having sex in my car in that parking lot once.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
And then weren't you like, hey, what are you guys doing? And they ignored you. And
yeah, they just kept going. I'm like, I got to go. And they're just like, oh, no problem, man. And I'm like, they kept going. So I went back in the bar, I had a couple beers, and figured I'd come back, check on them. They're just all cuddling up. And I'm like, all right, guys, you got to go through them. Their shirt back. And went on my way. You can't block them,
The things that happen on Varick Street.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen some good times down there. That's for sure.
Indeed.
I mean, back when the EC was open, when I first moved down here, that was right when you would open the EC, and Tim and those guys, that whole crew was hanging out there all the time. Every night, or whatever. A lot of good music down there. That was kind of my first introduction to the area. I remember I came down to see a concert actually at the Odd or something. In fact, Hardman was posting about it the other day. That was right around the time that Oysterhead played.
Oysterhead?
The Odd.
Yeah.
And
which was like 02 maybe or
02.
01 or
that was when I first came down to this area and started hanging out, and then I came down for some other shows and stuff to hang out with those guys, and then I got introduced to you and the EC and stuff, and then I eventually moved the next year or whatever. So
you came in right at the right time.
Great times. Yeah. Great times.
Let's talk about the Oysterhead show, though, for a second. That was legendary at the Odd when you got Trey Anastasio, Les Claypool, and Stuart Copeland as a three-piece band coming to the Odd. Rock that place. And that album is incredible. I'm glad Hardiman posted that up.
Oh, yeah. No, that show, that goes down in my experience as one of the top probably 2 or 3 shows I've ever seen. And one of the other really great shows, we were talking about this the other night when I bumped into you, was the last time Fish played the Odd.
Yeah.
They just burned it down.
10.
Oh, it was great. That was a great show. But that Oysterhead show walk into the Odd and you can tell right away that the folks running the show at that point in time were not prepared for what was coming at them that night. They were not prepared for, like 6,000, unique individuals coming into this venue to just let loose as much as possible for 3 hours straight. And,
I think the Odd itself couldn't handle it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there were people jumping the balconies. There were people just like, they were trying to like control ticketing, like, oh, you can go here, and all that stuff. That was out the window.
It was a bum rush.
That was out the window before they even stepped on stage. It was just crazy, but it was a really good time. Yeah, we had a great time.
One of the most wildest nights I've ever had at the Odd.
Imagine how smoky it must have been in there.
It was.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
bad.
Oh, yeah. No, it was a great time, great show, and I hope they continue to bring great shows into town. We were talking about too that the legendary Trey Band.
Oh yeah, that's right. Which
Stanley
happened right after that, pretty much. I want to say
right
like
in that
6 months. 6 months after that Oysterhead show, he came right back with the Trey Band at the Stanley.
Yeah.
That's right. We talked about this the other day at the Stanley, and the balcony was shaking so much that plaster was falling from the ceiling. And what happened was the fire marshal had to shut that show down because the balcony was just moving like this.
Wow.
Like 8 inches. And the fire marshal was screaming at the tour manager, you got to shut this down. So in the middle of the show, tour manager walks up to Trey, whispers in his ear, they had to make an announcement that we got to stop. Trey goes into his dressing room, comes back out with his guitar, and finishes the night off playing acoustic. Told stories and all this, and it was great. He saved the day.
Calmed everything down.
Everything down, and then Cheo books him for a show like down the road, maybe 6 months later or whatever, at the Odd with the Trey Band, and they picked up right where they left off. Which is amazing about Trey. He went back to the archives to figure out what they were doing, and they started right where they got left off, and it just random. Amazing.
Yeah. One of my biggest regrets is I didn't go to that show at the Stanley. I had tickets. I was all lined up to come down. I was still living up north at the time. I was all lined up to come down, hit that show. Was working, wherever at the time. And boss wouldn't give me the day or two I needed to come down. And, I always had to add like a day or two buffer to those type of trips. You know how that goes.
Especially if you're coming to Utica.
Yeah, exactly. Coming to Utica, coming down to party with my college buddies and all that stuff.
You got to decompress a little bit.
You got to decompress. You got to relax. You got to take it easy. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. And I didn't end up going. It was a legendary show, once in a lifetime opportunity. I decided right then and there, I'm never going to miss something like that again for something like a job, and that was my mentality then. And honestly, it still kind of is. I mean, it's some of these things that cross our paths. Like they're just never going to be.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. Like I couldn't agree with you more. Like every time like a Bob Seger comes to town or a band that I really am into, I make it a point to go see them because you never know what you're going to see. You never know who's going to jump on stage with them. You never know, like, that could be your last time ever seeing them. It could be an epic show, and you can miss it. And for what? For a job that maybe you left 6 months later.
Yeah.
Or, a job you just don't care about. At least when you look back and you say, I have these memories and I can always have them with me, instead of, I didn't go because I had to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
You'll have another job.
Yeah, it's a lesson learned, right? It's you never know. So.
You never know.
Yeah.
Angela's checking in. She says, Mark's on. Now I'm in trouble.
Hey, Angela. How are you?
Hey, Ange, thanks for checking in.
Or maybe he's in trouble.
Or maybe
you're in trouble.
I might be in trouble. I'm in trouble from time to time. So.
Especially being on this show.
Yeah, right.
But, some legendary nights, that's for sure, back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I moved here at the right time. Things were starting to come back up, and there was a lot of people, at that time and still today that were interested in reviving the music scene or reviving the nightlife or reviving the shopping or reviving the business and small business and entrepreneurship. And, that was, I think, a time when, the entrepreneurship that we see today was really just starting to kick off.
Yeah.
More so than ever, right? Or more so than in the history that I can remember anyway. And excuse me, so it was just the perfect time to watch the area kind of, come back to life and feel sure of itself again. And then, watch people our age kind of move out, move back, start things, try things, and it's been great, and then too, I mean, I love living here. I love the time I've spent here. It's like, you look around, and I remember one time when I was first living in this area, I was out in Cali visiting some friends. We went to this house party, and this dude at the house party was from this area.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like throwing the party, and he's like asking me what my deal is, and I tell him, oh yeah, I live in Utica. He's like, the blah blah blah. I had like something to say about that, and I was like, really? I looked around. I go, how much is this house? He's like, this house is $600,000. I go, you've got bars on your windows, dude. I don't even lock my door. Like, that's the difference for me. You know what I mean? And it's always been that as a huge reason for living here and existing here in this area is that, you know, it's safe, it's friendly. Winter sucks. Let's not bullshit about that. The winter sucks, but there's so much positive, you know, like you can afford to buy a house here still. There's so many areas of the country. Look at San Francisco, you know, look at any of these areas that are just, you know, booming and exploding at the seams, you know? And so I think there's just a ton. I'm feeling very nostalgic, you know, because I'm on my way out right now. And so I've been kind of dwelling on this stuff a lot lately that, you know, it's just been so good to me here, you know.
Well, you're moving out to Colorado.
Yeah. One of the things I like most about this area too is you could do a background check on somebody. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I lived in Florida.
Without using Google?
Yeah. You know, because you get the real story.
The
you know?
friend network?
Yeah.
Hey, you know this guy?
You know Tony? Oh, I know Tony. I grew up with Tony. He peed his pants in 3rd grade. You know, like, you know that stuff. And, you know, like, when you go down to Florida, like, where I moved to, everybody is a transient. They're from somewhere else. And so there's no background in anybody. There's no history. There's no, like, tradition. And when you come back to Utica, you got your Utica traditions. You got the, you know, Oskanit's been there forever. You know, you got these landmarks that have always been here that always makes you feel like home. And there's people here that, like, you've known since you were in elementary school. You know, you played in a sandbox with them, then you played, you know, high school basketball with them or whatever. You know what I mean? So you always have that reference. And that's one thing that I liked, you know, coming back to Utica.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a great area. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's home.
Yeah.
It's home. Now, talk about your move out to Colorado. Let's also talk about your job and stuff like that.
Sure,
You're
absolutely.
getting transferred? Is that what it
Yeah,
was
so I'm basically being transferred. So I've been with the company Urban Grow that's out in Colorado. They're in Lafayette, Colorado. I've been with them a little over 2 years and recently took a new position with them in operations. I was in sales. Originally, when I was hired to basically help build the market out here for their products. So for people who don't know what it is that Urban Grow does or what I do, so we design and engineer and then procure equipment for cannabis cultivation facilities all throughout the U.S., Canada. Now we're in Jamaica, Israel, Australia, a bunch of other, you know, countries overseas. And, you know, we do all the guts of the grow type of stuff, lighting, benching, irrigation systems, control systems, automation, all of that type of stuff.
Nutrients too, any of that?
So we're starting to actually get into that.
Okay.
Mainly because we have a whole integrated pest management division, and that somewhat loosely ties into that as well, right? They all tie in, but we've started to look at that. That's something we're working on right now. It's not released yet to the public. We're still working through formulations and things like that, but a lot of it is in an effort to simplify that process and make it integrate to the automated systems that we sell a little bit easier, you know, for folks. So we're definitely, you know, working on things like that.
When you say automated, though, so you have like these apps. Do you have an app that will turn your lights on? Because if it's on like a 12-12 cycle or something like that, you could turn like you hit an app and then all of a sudden the lights go on.
Right.
And now there's tracks and there's movable lights too for cultivating cannabis. And there's some really, really cool things, and technology has definitely grown so much with growing marijuana.
With growing weed, with growing. I mean, it, you know, back in the day when we were growing in, you know, tents and basements and, you know, these other areas, wherever you could find, you know, it was kind of the technology was rudimentary. You know, it was whatever you get the grow shop and things like that. And now, you know, I say that sort of, it's a cliche term, but the bleeding edge, the industry now is at that bleeding edge constantly. And it's like every 3 months, there's something new, there's something different. But yeah, I mean, we do all of that type of thing where the automating of the lighting and the irrigation and the delivering fertilizer to the plants. And, you know, I've even been working on a project. We didn't supply the specific equipment for this, but now we're, you know, building facilities where the plants are moved around the building or moved around the greenhouse using a robot, where, you know, you stay in one area of the building and then you just program the robot. Okay, today we want to work on the plants that are in bay A1, bring them to me. And the robot goes down his track and picks up big trays and sets them on a conveyor belt in the middle of the building, and it brings it to you and you do your work. whether it's trimming or trellising or treating or spraying or whatever it is. And then you hit the button and the robot takes it back to where it's supposed to live.
It's crazy.
You know?
Wow.
And so, you know, you're cutting down on people walking around, certainly these huge greenhouses and
Yeah, because you got to
facilities.
keep it clean.
Yeah, keeping it clean and all that stuff. And so, you know, so that's what we do. And you know, I've been in sales with them for, like I said, a couple of years now. And as cannabis cultivation facilities, especially out here, out east, just became more sophisticated in terms of how they were getting built, how they were going to be operated, their size, the technology that they were putting in, and then also like the companies they were hiring to design and build, you know, physically pour concrete or physically put in electrical or do plumbing. It all just became way more sophisticated. So my job really changed to that of like a project manager for those companies that we were doing business with. And then, you know, the company decided that that was something that was needed across the board, and operations is in Colorado. So that's why we're moving out there.
Now, do you guys strictly do indoor or do you do outdoor grows?
We work on indoor, we work on greenhouses, we work on outdoor grows. We got a couple out in Colorado right now that are getting fired up with automated irrigation and those types of things. You know, obviously you're not controlling the environment when you're outdoors,
right?
But you know, as far as automating the irrigation and doing sensors, you know, a lot of where we're headed now is in what they call sense and control, where we can plug a sensor into the rock wool or into the pot where the plant is growing and monitor the EC and the pH and the temperature and the water quality, you know, water content of that media, and then send that information back to a computer. And over time, not immediately, but over time, you can start to program in algorithms and programming that it will allow it to water those plants when they need it, rather than on a timer or on like a set cycle of days or something like that. And so that's really where it's headed. And if you look at big agriculture, that's where they're all headed, right? Is the ability to do those things. So, you know, one of the cool things that our company did is we actually were approached by a company that developed sensor technology and this communications technology that's called high density. They didn't invent high density Internet of Things, but they invented a communications protocol for that. And we have since, you know, bought that company and integrated them into Urban Grow, and now are getting ready. We're doing beta testing right now on these types of sensors where we can collect data. Say you got 1,000 plants in a room, we can collect data from basically every other plant in the room at a really, really low cost per sensor, and then use that data, you know, and the more data points you have, the more relevant that becomes, right, for telling you what's going on, and then use that to feed back to, you know, at first the grower to make decisions, and then eventually the computer would be able to be programmed to say, okay, the left side of the room, you know, just to keep it simple, the left side of the room is drier than the right side of the room, but neither side is ready to be watered, and then start scheduling itself so that when it's ready, it will water just that individual area.
Why can't we do this with our food?
So, well, they are. I mean, you look at, you know, different. One of the areas where we see this being employed early stage is in wine, in the wine industry, grape growing. They're using a lot of sensors and that type of technology to really analyze how their grapes, how the water is coming in, what kind of, you know, any nutrients, anything like that, any information like that, so that they can really tweak how they're growing. Because how that plant grows, has, just like cannabis, has an immediate and direct correlation to the final product and the quality of that final product, flavor. And, you know, I mean, in terms of cannabis, cannabinoid content, terpene content, you know, wine, grapes, I don't really know. That's not my wheelhouse, but it's very similar in how if it's too dry, that might have a positive or negative effect based on the varietal or strain, you know, or phenotype that you're growing.
Right.
And so that's all being incorporated in. And I got in with this company at the right time when they were just kind of coming out of their first couple of years in business, early stage, and starting to acquire some other technology and other groups and things like that. And they picked me up, and, you know, it's been great. So we're excited to move out there, you know, but I mean, if it weren't for that opportunity, you know, I would still be living here. You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah, for sure.
Now, do they do automated nutrient feeds too? All of that. That's
yeah.
all
So
wow.
typically referred to as fertigation.
Okay.
You know, fertilizer, irrigation, fertigation. Not really a real word, I've been told, but we all use it pretty loosely. And so basically, we've got machines that are going to suck up different nutrients,
Okay.
right? Nitrogen,
Is there
phosphorus,
like
potassium, calcium.
Is there like a bucket or something?
Yeah, so it depends on how big your facility is. I mean, some facilities will take it right out of a premix concentrate bucket that might be 5 gallons that it was shipped to you in. Other facilities are taking raw elemental salt, nutrients in salt form, mixing that with warm water to blend it, and then adding that in specific ratios through those machines. And we deal with a couple of different companies on that. And there's different ways to do it, right? You can use batch tank systems. You can use direct inline nutrient injection systems. You can use kind of a combination of those two. There's a lot of different ways to approach it.
Is it on like the irrigation system too?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all intertwined with each other?
Yeah, fresh water comes in. Usually we pre-treat that fresh water somehow. A lot of times people are using RO to clean up their water these days. Even if it's like city water or well water, we tend to find that, a lot of folks want to start with a blank palette with cannabis, mainly because of the value of it. Most of your greenhouse growers that are growing other types of crops, if it's potable water, if it's safe to drink, they'll give it to the plants without a whole lot of pre-treatment. I think a lot of that has to do with, in the cannabis industry, when you lose a crop, you lose your job. It's pretty well correlated with that. So I think there's a lot of, concern around that. Just the fact that you can lose a couple $1 million in crop pretty easily with that plant. And it is just such a high value. So we'll come in, we'll clean the water up, pre-treat it, store it so that we have ample supply just in case something happens, to the incoming supply. And then it goes through fertigation.
pH levels and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it'll go through the machine. The machine does all of that, depending on which version of that we're going to use. And then we've got different sensors and all kinds of things we employ. And then one of the cool things we're doing now a lot is taking all the wastewater and cleaning that up.
Oh, cool.
So, anybody that's ever, done a cultivation of cannabis before, they probably are familiar with the fact that they're going to flush at the end. That's pretty typical, to flush at the end. Clean water flush. That water is going down the drain as leachate. Usually if you're growing, especially if you're growing in something like rock wool, which is where everybody's headed these days, or not everybody, but a lot of people are, you're going to have leachate on just about, 70% of your irrigation cycles throughout the day. There's going to be some leachate that has to go somewhere. So we're taking all of that, recapturing it, cleaning it, scrubbing it, sending it back in as fresh water. And then the other really cool thing is we're doing the same with the condensate that comes off the HVAC systems.
Really?
So yeah, so the plant is only going to retain like 3 to 5% of the water you give it. So the rest of that is either going down the drain in leachate as it bleeds off, or it's going up into your HVAC system and out as condensate. So we can recapture and reuse that.
But in the HVAC system, there's usually some sort of like air conditioning fluid in there or something like that. Is it right?
There's not that. I mean, it's just hitting the coils and condensing and then hitting a pan and then going through tubing or piping, back to wherever it's headed.
And it filters right back through.
But then we send it through a pretty sophisticated filtration process, because the thing is that the condensate is probably the dirtiest water in the facility.
Okay.
You got to figure every time somebody coughs, sneezes, itches their scalp and the dandruff comes off. I mean, all those types of touches things, that can all potentially end up airborne and end up back through that system. So we put it through a rigorous, cleaning process. But the cool thing is there's really no discharge. So there's whatever we're capturing off those units, your dehume units and your HVAC units, we can reuse that. And so in areas like California, where they have, major water constraints, major issues around water, in areas like Massachusetts, where they're just simply saying, hey, we don't want that stuff going down the drain, guys. You got to do something else with it. We're doing a lot of those systems, and it's super exciting. It's really
Plus, you're getting all that airborne stuff out of the systems, too. You're not, like, blowing around the room again, still going through the air conditioners and stuff like that.
Yeah. And just, that's the other thing too, is we do a little bit with that type of thing. We've got some cool systems that do hydrogen peroxide generation to help keep things clean and sterile for like those types of systems. And we're in a little bit of everything. What I always say, we're in the guts of the grow. If it isn't inside the box, we don't do it. We don't put a roof on. We're not going to sell you a steel building. We're not going to put the lights in the parking lot, that type of thing. So that's always where I kind of draw the line, right? Is that we know what we know, and we're really good at the stuff that has to do with cultivating and growing, and that's what we do. So,
but you're the project manager.
So yeah, I am the project manager, but only for the stuff we do. I try to steer clear of the other stuff, But
what are the more common things that could make a crop go bad? That you're noticing.
Pests are the big one.
Spider mites.
Yeah, spider mites. Root aphids. Thrips, powdery mildew is another one that we see a lot of, just powdery mildew like crazy. You got to figure, like in an area like this, right? It's Walked out of the house an hour ago, it was 77 and like 98% humidity, and then it starts pouring, drops to 70, right? So the dew point's changing really rapidly. And then, it's super humid. And those types of things, those humidity issues can really lend themselves to PM, powdery mildew. There's, really strict testing protocol in a number of states. Massachusetts is one of them. Nevada is another one. Those are probably the two strictest as far as testing of flour and extract and final product. So that's where we see people get through a full crop, get it out there, go to testing, and it fails testing, right? And so then, they have to retest, but if they retest it as flour and it's cured even longer, chances are it's just going to retest hot again. So then they end up blowing it out to extract. But there's still, in most states, it's still like 70, 80% flour being sold on the market where they allow flour. Like New York State, they don't allow flour. It's only extract. So, if you've got really nice looking bud run and all of a sudden you got to blow it out to oil, it's heartbreaking, So, we see a lot of issues with that. We see a lot of issues. I'll tell you one that I see all the time are people value engineering these facilities. The old school was, it was kind of like how we did Aquavita, in all honesty. We took a building, we said, okay, this is a building. This is an empty warehouse, with nothing inside of it. And we're going to strap as much HVAC as we think we're going to need to it, right? And then when we found out we needed more, we just start strapping it in wherever we could basically punch through the wall to strap more in. Lights, we're just going to run with the lights we think are best. And there wasn't as much, understanding as there is even today, right? Even a few years later, as to how to really properly calibrate things, how to give, an indoor controlled environment, ag environment, how to really tune that in and what kind of equipment to use. So there was a lot of just like, layers. We added this. Okay, that didn't quite work, so we're going to add some more. Okay, that screwed something up. We're going to change it and add some more. And then, now it's just, people will get into these facilities thinking that it's going to cost them $5 million to build a 25,000 square foot grow in the Northeast. And the reality is it's probably more than double that. Right. And so then they start trying to value engineer things. And so that's where you see a lot of failures.
John's checking and says, do West Uticans count as pests for your crops, and how do you get rid of them?
You give them a UC. Either give it to them opened, or if they're really nasty, just dump it on them, and then they're good. They just calm right down. They don't go away.
They never really.
No, they never go away, especially once you give them the UC.
He also says, going back to not missing out on opportunities, he walked out of his valet job at the Golden Nugget in Vegas when they made him work on New Year's Eve, and he woke up the next morning on a porch with no shoes, no job, no memory, so no regrets.
That's great.
Thanks for checking in, cuz. Good to hear from you.
Nice.
So, yeah, Mark, you got some really cool things. I love how the whole technology, now the computers are pretty much growing your wheat nowadays.
Yep. Yeah, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty close.
You still really need somebody that can read the plant and knows what's going on and, gets how things can turn on a dime on you, and can be out in the garden,
Now,
really inspecting things.
These people that are growing, becoming new growers, are they more like big companies growing, buying land and growing, or is it like, like people who used to run farms and now are repurposing their farms to grow weed?
We're not seeing a lot of that. I mean, what we are seeing is a lot of big money come in. There's no doubt. I mean, the Northeast was really, I think, one of the first areas where we saw just a hard switch to, big money, large, investor pools or investment groups coming in, basically just because of how much it costs to play. You figure that in some of these competitive bid states, you spend $1 million, $2 million just to try and win a license. That's before you've even won the damn thing, and so the money then it takes to build the facility and sustain while you're really not making money. I mean, that's one of the other things. A lot of people think, you're going to turn on the lights and the next day you're just rolling in the dough, and it's just not the case. The overhead to run these facilities is just staggering.
Imagine.
And then if it takes, like New York again, I mean, took forever to get a decent patient count because of the way the law was written. It's so restrictive. So if there's no ultimately patients in a fully medical state are your customers or your clientele, if they're not there and they're not available to buy your product, doesn't matter how good it is, doesn't matter how much you grow, doesn't matter how efficient you are. If you can't sell what you're growing, or if you can't sell what you built yourself to be able to grow, you're SOL. So it does take a lot of money, and we are seeing that. I have talked to a number of people in states where they have greenhouses and they have, those types of things already available to them where they're growing other crops and they are looking to switch over. And then we have seen, where some of the big names in the greenhouse industry have started to get in, but not to repurpose facilities, but to build brand new facilities.
As the other question I was going to ask, like people growing other crops, have they looked into your company or the way you guys do things for to adapt to that style? Like more of the robots and stuff.
Yeah, I mean we've definitely talked to other companies that are growing lettuce, growing food crop and things like that. And there's a lot of companies out there that service those type of greenhouses specifically. And definitely like our sensor technology and those things that are getting ready to come out later this year, that stuff is really aimed at anybody cultivating, can be able to afford that. On the other side, you do have where there are those companies that are really specific to lettuce, like we are to cannabis, and really specific to, vining and fruiting flowering crop like tomatoes, like we are to cannabis. So, we don't tend to play in that space as much. And realistically, we're so friggin' busy with what we got going on now. And especially now at Canada is just nuts. The cannabis market in Canada is just nuts. The biggest grows in the world are getting built up there, as we speak. And coming online as we speak, and they're monsters. They're as big as I've ever seen a greenhouse.
Wow.
And
how big?
I think there's one, that all multiple acres.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's one up there right now. I don't happen to work with this particular company, but I think they're working on 20 some odd acre facility that they're bringing on in stages. So they'll build out a portion of it, bring it online, build the next one, bring it online, and they're just end to end together. They're just massive.
Do any of these facilities run on solar?
So not so much. I mean, we definitely see where, obviously with the greenhouse, the benefit is the light, right? As opposed to being indoors and you've got no light, you get these artificial lights. With the solar, we just haven't really seen any massive, I haven't personally, not saying they're not out there. I mean, I haven't seen every single cannabis grow in the world, but we're just not seeing it as much. And the way it's been explained to me, and I don't totally comprehend it, is that it would just take such a massive solar array to provide that amount of power that it just doesn't kind of work right now. But I would imagine that as, companies in our industry are looking to be, more responsible around power consumption, more responsible on water and other resources, that they are definitely looking at those things and trying to figure out how to incorporate them.
Or what about windmill technology?
Yeah, I don't know. If we could strap a giant windmill, I think that windmill would have to be friggin' huge. Some of these places,
talk a lot of power.
When you're burning 1,000 lights.
Well, when you're talking, I was just saying
1,000 lights.
I was thinking when you're talking like 20 acres of land. I mean, they must have land or money for something like that. It'd be kind of a cool idea. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's all that stuff is finding its way in. You know what I mean? I mean, anytime you go to like MJ BizCon, which is the big show in Vegas every year in November, anytime you go to any of the other, smaller but still really valuable cannabis, specific shows, NECAN that they have in Boston every year, and some of the other ones, NCIA that they do across the country, you definitely see like people with solar and wind and these types of things coming in and being able to, offer what they have, and I mean, it's crazy because like the house we just bought in Colorado, every house in that neighborhood has solar, and it's like something that I'd even thought of before. And when I was checking out the house, it was like, oh, that's cool. There's, solar panels. And then there's like a little box in the basement that tells you how much it's producing, how much it's produced total, all that kind of thing. And I'm thinking like, I'm gonna be checking this thing every day. Until I get it figured out, I'm gonna be checking this thing every day just to see what these things are up to. But yeah, I mean, all that stuff is part of it. And there's a lot of people who think that in the next few years, as it matures, particularly if it was to go federally legal across the board in the states, that you'll see just huge companies, right, come in, the big, it's always the fear, right, the big tobacco companies, the big pharmaceutical companies, whoever, big alcohol will come in and set up mega grows and just dominate, and put all the mom and pops out, and that's always definitely a concern, but as they get larger by their very nature, we're going to see a push towards more efficiency, and then you look at Massachusetts, they're a great example. They just put like a 35 watt per square foot limit on canopy, what's that mean? So 35 watts a square foot, you figure a typical double-ended HPS or a double-ended HPS lamp that most people are using these days to grow flower under, you're gonna be about 50 watts a square foot in your canopy with that. So you're more than what they're gonna allow. They capped them at 35. So a lot of those companies are having to go to LED.
Is it
technology.
mostly LED now? Have they all made the switch, or is it all? It's all
No.
a lot of bulbs still.
It's still a lot of bulbs.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that LED up front is pretty expensive still, and you know, that's a hard one to pick off when you're already spending, you know, $2 million on the property and $2 million on the HVAC and this here and that there, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, do I want a $1 million light bill up front, or do I want to spend a third of that or a quarter of that?
By the
to
time
get
they
lights?
blow, the lights might be down cheaper.
So yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that they're definitely coming down. There's some great products on the market. We sell some great LED products, and I think they're right for the right person. The right grow or the right thing. The ones up in Canada primarily that we're working with are all LED.
Wow.
And they're definitely. I think it also has to do with like, what's your mentality? Are you going to be in this building for the next 25 years as a company, right? As a dominant company in this industry for the rest of time or whatever? Or are you looking at it going, well, we built this first one, this small one in this new market. We might be here 4 or 5 years, and then we're going to move to another building. So maybe we won't spend on, the super elaborate technology now. We're going to do that in round 2. So there's a lot of considerations that go into it. And then in the States, it's just state by state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now with an LED bulb, though, it's much less in power, right?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's much less in power. There's definitely less. There's definitely less consumption theoretically for the amount of light that it puts out, and therefore it creates less heat because a watt is a watt to cool. So if you're using less wattage to create the same amount of light, you're generating less heat, less cooling capacity, stuff like that. So there's definitely some benefits. I think the really cool benefits of it that people are just now starting to figure out. And of course, there's been no testing really done on it yet, but changing light spectrum definitely has an impact on the quality of the flower, right? So cannabinoid and terpene ratios can be adjusted or manipulated from light spectrum based on what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And so as people are starting to figure that out, I work with this one grower who is working with an LED company to get like 20 lights built for him that are his own custom spectrum that he thinks he's kind of figured out is the cat's meow for growing the way he wants to grow. And so I think that's what's going to be really interesting, especially as people move more towards like extracts and things like that. That has a huge impact on that, and just the quality of the medicine. I mean, when you're looking at it, for pain, high THC content is shown or anecdotally understood to be effective for pain, right? And so if you can increase the THC content of the final product without increasing what it costs you to make that final product, you could deliver medicine to people at same or lower cost that's more effective, right? So they take less of it, use less of it, cost them less as a patient, And so I think that's the really exciting stuff that I love, that I'm, involved with, with our company and with our partners and, who supply equipment to us and growers, is trying to figure that stuff out. Basically, how do you grow high quality, potent, safe medicine for the lowest possible cost, possible, and then distribute that, and that increases access and everything. So that's the kind of stuff that I think is really cool, about where it's headed.
No, let me ask you, what do you think the next state is that's going to, allow marijuana?
So I think it's on the ballot in Utah, of all places.
Yeah, I'm really shocked by that.
Yeah. I think it's on the ballot in Utah.
They like to make money out there, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when states take a look around, even we've heard Cuomo come out and say, well, it's about to be legal in Massachusetts. Recreational is about to be legal in Massachusetts starting, I believe, July 1 is the official date that it starts out there.
Is Maine legal too?
Maine is, but the governor has been
dragging his feet.
Roadblocking.
What about Vermont?
Vermont out there? The Vermont, it's a weird one. So I don't believe that the commercial facilities in Vermont are allowed to sell adult use or recreational, as they call it. But as an individual living in Vermont, you can grow like 4 plants and consume it how you see fit. I think that's how it ended up shaking out.
So New York's gonna be like that cock block state.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know if they are. I mean, it sounded like Cuomo, who was very anti. I mean, back when I first got involved in sort of watching the legislation in New York, a number of years ago, he was just adamant, like, this is not going to happen. I'm not for this. I do not support this. And then the position has shifted over time. And I think that when leadership, particularly those that have these old views that have proven for a lot of us to be completely wrong, right? When they look around and go, oh, the sky's not falling in Massachusetts. Oh, the children are okay, right? That's the one we always hear, right? What about the children?
Nobody's
right?
jumping out the windows.
Yeah.
And
The whole reefer madness.
Yeah, there's no reefer
mentality.
madness. You know what I mean? And so then they go, oh, and there's some tax revenue here, and oh, that's job creation, and because these facilities need a lot of people.
Oh,
still, even with automation and things we do, they need a ton of people. They employ a ton of people. They pay very good wages. So they take a look around and realize, okay, maybe I should look at this. And so I think we'll see that happen in New York, hopefully sooner rather than later. I know that there's, we were just talking about this in a meeting the other day, what states are about to come online, but there's a handful of them that have laws pending, and Utah's just the one that jumps out for me right at the moment. But I know there's a couple other, I think Midwestern, I think Kansas.
Oh, really?
Kansas has a law pending. It might
I think
even
like
be
Kentucky too. Like, aren't they?
I don't
big
know.
into growing down
Yeah,
there?
I don't know if they have a law or not. I mean, the reality is they're big into growing everywhere. I mean, everywhere I've been, there's someone growing a plant or two. Whether it's outdoor. We used to have the old Adirondack Gold up there. For the very short growing season that exists up there, and that was the first time. I remember being up there. It was the first time I ever saw a bud turn purple. They basically, like a lot of the growers up there would say, well, you got to let it get through that first frost, that first cold snap, not necessarily a frost, to get that good flavor and that good color on it and stuff. And they try to wait it out, as long as they could, and things like that, all that old school.
That was their technique, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And every grower has, if they've been growing for a while, they all have something that they attribute success to, we've got folks that are like, self-taught growers that are like, I put molasses in my fertilizer, right? And then you've got folks that are, guys and gals that have been to horticultural school, wherever, and they're like, that's baloney. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. You don't need that. Plants need this, and that's it, and that's what science tells me. And we're always kind of in the middle of that. We've got folks that
They're like the Italian cooks.
Yeah,
they don't follow the recipe.
They don't follow a recipe.
Yeah, it is a little bit of that.
Is it a pinch or a punch?
Yeah, you've been doing it that way for however many years.
Yeah,
you've been
that works.
successful. And I always say, hey, just you do whatever you want. We'll build to your specifications. We'll design to that. And I learn something new every day, from these guys. So it's cool.
I want to go back to Urban Grow. Do you guys make extract equipment? Right?
No, we don't. No,
For
we don't get into
oils
that.
or any of that?
We don't get into that. There's lots of companies that are doing that make great equipment. We certainly know all of those companies and run into them. We were all running the same circles, and tend to run into each other at facilities during commissioning and getting those up and running and set up. But no, we don't sell that. But that's fascinating.
Strictly
stuff.
grow with you guys, though.
Strictly grow.
Okay.
But that is fascinating stuff. I mean, I nerd out when I'm in a new facility on their extract lab to see all the shiny metal and bells and whistles and beakers and, roto evaps and things that they're doing in there, and talk to whoever they've got, enlisted to run their extract program, because, it's a science and it's an art at the same time. And the things they're starting to figure out where they can do multi-stage runs of product through these systems so that they can extract specific terpenes and specific, cannabinoids at different levels. And whereas I think when they first started using, especially like the high pressure CO2 machines, they were just blowing it through and they were losing a lot of lesser cannabinoids and terpenes. And, if you look at the what they call the entourage effect of cannabis, if you've got, a situation where you've got something that's super high in THC, like a final distillate or a final extract that's super high in THC, and all of the CBD content that was in that original product has been destroyed through the process, you can definitely experience some negative side effects of THC, and there's definitely known negative side effects. One of which anyone who's ever consumed the product is familiar with is paranoia, And so one of the things that I've read about, and again, I mean, I'm not a scientist, I just love to kind of study this stuff and know about it, is, those that are studying are saying, well, one effect of CBD is calming, and, that counter affects that THC negativity, so if you have a Blue Dream is flower that's, popular with the kids these days.
Yeah.
And so, everybody knows that. So I just pick it as a name that people know. So, if you've got a strain of Blue Dream or a phenotype of Blue Dream, and it's, coming out at 22% THC and 1.2% CBD, and you run that through a machine and you come out the other end with extract that's got, 3 times now this THC and 0 CBD because it blew off during the process, you could encounter, potentially, I think negative side effects with that, or just simply not the desired outcome.
You just answered so many questions for me. Just you did, because there's sometimes when I'll take the oil and I'll just be like jittery and freaking out sometimes. Like I like flour over oils and extract.
I do too.
Well, because you got the terpenes in there,
I'm
right?
old school too.
You got terpenes, you got limonene, you got pinene, you've got this whole entourage, as they call it, of terpenes that are what you smell, right? You don't smell THC, you don't smell CBD, you don't smell CBN and the cannabinoids, but you're smelling the terpenes, right? That's the thing. You open a jar, open a bag, and you're like, that smells like, diesel, lemon, and, blue cheese or whatever it is you're picking up, right? And, those have an effect as well. So that kind of worries me is when we get into like Frankenweed, where, we're taking, we got some of this leftover nug that really isn't sellable because it's popcorn nug. It looks like shit. We're going to run that through a batch and, we'll test that. And then, we've got some trim over here and we'll run that through a batch. And, we need to get to a certain level to fill all the vials. So we'll just mix them together, right? Because then you don't really know what you're getting,
right.
And there's all these times I, talk to guys and they're just like, they don't know what they're consuming, right? And so that's where I think having a really well-regulated program is really critical. Things are being tested. Things are being, tested not only for purity, in terms of is there, residual pesticides in there? Is there residual, powdery mildew or other things that shouldn't be in there? And also just potency. Is it a 60% THC pen or is it a 90% THC pen? Because your experience with that is going to vary widely.
Plus your indica sativa balance too, like because certain strands and have different effects on people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean that's what's reported, right? And the thing is that all of that's anecdotal. Like there's just no, to my knowledge, hard proof of that, basically because it's federally illegal and they can't study it in the States, and the studies that are going on are very early stage, more about like efficacy with PTSD or efficacy with nausea for cancer treatments, anxiety and things like that. Not so much about, okay, we've got this strain that's a known indica and we've got this strain that's a known sativa. And the thing is that there's so much crossbreeding. There's so much, where people are breeding their own strains, and there's a huge industry or portion of the industry. I don't know if I call it huge, but there's a portion of the industry around creating new phenotypes and around creating new genetics. And, so you get all these crossbreeds, and then, is it really truly an indica anymore, really truly a sativa? Hard to say. There is a group out in Oregon. I think it's in Oregon. I think they're called Phylos Bioscience. And they're doing this really cool thing where they are testing strains, and then they're creating, I think you can look it up online, the universe. And it shows where everything that they're testing falls in relationship to what it's supposed to be. So a lot of times people say, oh, this is OG Kush, right? And they get it in and they test it and they're like, nope, no, it's not.
Wow.
In fact, it's something completely different. It's actually this.
And how do they test
it? With science.
Yeah.
With science.
They smoke it.
They smoke a little bit.
Like
and they're like,
or something.
no, I don't know. I don't know how they test it. They are testing it on on a molecular level, I guess. And,
hand it over here. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. And then pumping the data into a big machine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So it's cool.
How many strains do you think are out there right now? Thousands. It's hard to even keep track. They're coming up with new ones all the time.
And then you always got that one guy that just makes up his own name. Oh, this is an orange orangutan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what the fuck? No, it ain't. Like,
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is that right now there's no, and then you've got states where instead of being able to call it by whatever name that strain was given by whoever cultivated that or developed that particular strain, instead of using that, they're using things like, blue and gold and red and, or mood and happy and sad or whatever to describe it and almost go down that road of like, this is more acceptable pharmaceutically or whatever. And I think that's kind of bullshit.
and everything has a kush. Everything's a kush now.
And sour or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you use Leafly?
I used to use Leafly a lot when I was involved with, like licensing and going for licenses and, was working on some projects with some other groups before I went with Urban Grow, where we were writing information for inclusion into license application, discussing strains and discussing different things that would be grown in those facilities if they got licensed. So I used to use it a lot for that. I think it's a great website. You know, it's definitely got some cool branding to it and very easy to use and navigate. But even that is really interesting. You'll go on there and say that, you know, orange orangutan is on there, right? And you find orange orangutan and you're like, oh, I want to get some of that. And, you know, let's see what people had to say about it. The first person is like, you know, I love orange orangutan. I used orange orangutan every day before my marathon, and I never gotten such great times in running marathons. And then the next person is like, orange orangutan makes me tired, you know, and they're just polar opposites, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you look at like the studies that are being done coming out of Israel, you know, that's especially where some of the stuff I've read has come from, is what they're saying is that with the human endocannabinoid system, that we're going to react differently, right?
Everybody's
to
different.
The cannabinoids and terpenes that are found in whatever product that is. And so, you know, what might make you happy, it might make me sad. And what might make me, you know, excited might make you mellow. And so, you know, to just say blankly, this does this, I think is a complete misnomer.
Yeah, true. Other than some of the side effects, though. Have you noticed?
Munchies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be a fairly common side effect.
That's
Munchies and bad TV.
and cottonmouth.
yeah, that is true.
And cottonmouth.
Although I noticed some give me worse cottonmouth than others.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes I'll be, you know, you're good, and other times it's just like you're sucking on sandpaper. I don't know if it's a strain or what, but like some strains like really dry out your mouth.
So again, I mean, they're all going to have different effects, right?
Right.
And then different potencies, right? That are all going to have different effects for you. So, I mean, I think the thing is too, like, I'm somewhat convinced that if you look at a mature market like Colorado, California, you know, where they can sell flowers or whatever, the name of the game with the dispensary seems to be to constantly have, you know, a rotation of different strains and whatever. And that's why a lot of facilities out there are growing or, you know, mothering just, you know, hundreds of strains. You know, they're just crazy with the amount of different strains that they're growing in their facilities so that they can keep up with that and the demand of their customers. I think personally it's because the receptors get full, right? And so, you know, if you've been, you know, smoking or vaping or using whatever product for some specific, you know, amount of time that's unique to you, eventually you're just going to get full and the receptors won't accept anymore. And so you have to go to something that just switches it up for you. You know,
It's like sometimes when you smoke dirt weed, you smoke good weed and you smoke dirt weed, then it's like, wow, holy shit, that really fucked me up.
I haven't even seen a bag of dirt weed since since
90s.
Orlando '98. That was the last time.
Did you have to like knock three times?
No, it was definitely in a park. Definitely in a park. I just remember a yellow slide. Bad memories. Let's move on.
Little dime bag slides on the door.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Half of it was seeds and stems.
Now with Urban Grow, do you have like stores throughout the United States, or is it just an online business?
No, we go direct to our customers. So we go direct to commercial growers. You know, we've got a sales team all over the country.
So it's just commercial growers. You're not going to supply Joe Schmo from South Street.
No, we don't. You know, I mean, Joe's a good guy.
Yeah.
You know, I got no problem with Joe. You
don't know Joe
right.
that well, do you?
He's good. The whole Schmo family, good people. So you know, we do commercial scale. So, you know, we're looking at facilities that are anywhere from 5,000 square feet of canopy to 200,000 square feet of canopy are kind of where we play. The average right now is probably in that like 20,000-ish square foot of canopy range.
Wow.
So, you know, plants under light.
A big facility.
Or in a greenhouse, you know, and that those are big facilities. Those are, you know, your jaw definitely drops the first couple of times you walk into a place like that, you know, walk into a room that's in full flower, that's 2,500 square feet, you know, packed from wall to wall.
Must smell wonderful.
Oh, it smells great. You know.
For me, it's like walking into the Holy Grail. All of a sudden you hear,
oh yeah. I was actually at a facility one time real early when I first got involved in this side of the industry, and was there, and they had it set up. It was a real old built facility, you know, had a lot of problems, but it was they had these huge double sliding doors in between the veg side of the building and the flowering side of the building. And when we went to go over there, the guy like pulled a wire, and they had the music blaring on the other side, and the doors opened up real dramatically.
Was
and
it
the
Pink
light
Floyd?
came on, and it might have been, it might have been Dark Side. And I had that same experience where I was just like, holy shit, what is going on in this joint? You know, it was like the biggest grow I'd ever seen at that time.
do some facilities play music?
Oh yeah,
It's
facility,
supposed to be
just
good for the
about
plants.
Yeah.
you know, and the workers. I mean, when you're in there for hours laboring, I mean, that's the thing that, as much as, you know, people get caught up in like the value of the product or the sophistication of the facilities or automation or robots or whatever you want to get involved with, when it comes right down to it, it's farming and it's hard work and it's labor and it's dirty and it's disappointing at times, and it's every day going in and wanting to loving what you do. I give a lot of credit to the people that are doing it, not only for that, but for food crops and for, everything. I mean, that's where I started, was, trying to do controlled environment ag with lettuce and basil and things like that here locally. And, it's always hard. It's always work. It's always a lot of labor. So, that's the thing that I think a lot of people getting involved with it don't recognize is you're going to have to get dirt under your nails. I don't care how clean your facility is.
Yeah, this is farming, like you said.
It's farming. Yeah.
Buddy Jay's checking. He said, are you hiring? I'm a quick learner, which is a good point. I mean, like, that's an aspect a lot of people don't think about, like the hiring aspect, putting a lot of people back to work, a lot of farmers back to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's putting a lot of people back to work. I mean, you look at even like just out in like Colorado, and it doesn't just have to do with the cannabis industry. I mean, the economy out there is booming for a lot of reasons. But, when you've got dispensaries that are willing to hire, new employees for $12 to $15 an hour to start out as a bud tender in their dispensaries, that immediately makes it so the McDonald's has to do the same thing. And that is, I think, an amazing ripple effect, is that the minute that this industry is kind of going into a marketplace and saying, hey, we value you being a really high quality employee. We value you being honest. We value you being here on time. We value you taking care of our patients or our customers. We're going to pay you a more reasonable wage than what you may see out there. Everyone else has to rise to that level or they won't have employees. It's like you look at around out there, like every McDonald's has a big help wanted sign out, all the time because they just can't get employees. They're running like something absurd, like 2.5% unemployment rate out there right now. So, I mean, definitely, with Urban Grow, urban-grow.com, that's the website, all the information's on there as far as, jobs and postings and things like that. They're definitely, I should say, are definitely, not always perpetually hiring, but we're definitely growing pretty rapidly. When I started with the company 2.5 years ago, I want to say there was like 15 employees and now there's 50.
Wow.
So it's just blown up. I mean,
urban growth.
Yeah. So it's just blown up and, but the whole industry has, all around us.
Sharky's checking in is calling you Dr. Green Thumb.
Dr. Green Thumb. Yeah, my man. Yeah, Mark Shark.
Hey, speaking of Dr. Green Thumb, are you paying attention to anything Be Real from Cypress Hill is doing right now?
So, I mean,
Be Real TV?
I'm paying attention to the music that those guys are doing.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I was a huge Rage Against the Machine fan. So when they kind of reincarnated that
Prophets of Rage.
I wish as Prophets. Yeah, I wish that they had Zach with them, obviously, but he must not been down to do the reincarnation.
Chuck D and
Chuck D.
Be Real. I mean, you can't. No slouches there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, did you see, just to sidebar a little bit?
Yeah, go.
Did you, right before I came over here, I saw this thing on Facebook. Somebody had reposted it, and it was like a brass band doing a Rage cover, and it was just killer. Like I was almost in tears watching this thing. Yeah, you should try to look it up. It was just amazing.
What'd they do?
So good. Now I'm drawing a blank on what they did. It'll come to me at some point, probably when I walk out here.
They usually do Killing the Name of, or
no, it wasn't Killing the Name of.
Down Rodeo Drive.
Nope.
Bulls on Parade.
It'll come to me. I'll look it up. on the side here. Don't put me under too much pressure. I can't do that right now.
Answer it now.
But yeah, you should try and find it for anybody that's on Facebook. Right now, look it up.
We could have played Racehorse Jam Band.
Yeah, Wheat Strain.
Wheat Strain.
The reason why I bring up Be Real, because he has a show on he has a network on YouTube and stuff called BeReal.tv, and he has a show called Dr. Green Thumb.
Yeah.
And he's very pro legalizing marijuana.
And they always have been.
They do the Smoke Box, it's one of his shows, and they've got a bunch of cool content on BeReal.tv.
I've seen him do that with, some growers that we work with, which is always cool, right? And that's really what people are interested in. I mean, you look at like Instagram, and you go to some of the grows that we work with or that we know, they'll have like 150,000 followers. Every post gets 18,000 thumbs up, of just like a picture of flower or whatever. And that's what people are really interested in, want to see. And that's awesome. You know what I mean? And I think it's great that I remember when I was like, listening to Cypress Hill, in my like early teens, and other people around were like, making a big deal out of it. I mean, I remember like when we were kids, we were talking about this a little bit when I was first in the studio before you went on, about how different it is. Right. And I feel like when I have those conversations, like, geez, what an old fucking man I am. You know what I mean? That I'm like one of those guys now. Like, you know, when I was a kid, you know, we didn't have the cellular phones. You know, we weren't text messaging. You know, and it's like, you know, but when I was a kid, I remember they were making big friggin' deals out of shit. You know, like, you know, if you had a Cypress Hill blacklight poster in your bedroom, people were freaking out on you. You know what I mean? It's just like, look how far the pendulum has swung.
And I think it's because of guys like Cypress Hill and Pantera used to have the pot leaf on their shirts and, you know, really promoting, you know, marijuana use. And that generation grew up.
Right.
You know, we
are running shit now.
Right. We realize, like, you know, it's not bad for you. People, we've been doing this for years, and now you get the money to back it.
Yeah. Safer than alcohol. I mean, in my opinion, you know, safer
100%.
than alcohol, safer than opiates. Obviously, you know, safer than other drugs.
You don't feel like shit the next day when you wake up in the morning?
No, I mean, not unless you know, end up like the guy that was texting earlier, you know, on somebody's front porch with no pants and a job, you know, and then, you know, you just smoke a little bit more and you're back in the saddle.
I believe there's some alcohol in
there was a lot more than weed in that statement. That's for damn sure. Oh, man. Jay wants to know what your thoughts are extracts. What are your thoughts on extracts?
I mean, we were talking about it earlier where,
He's
you know,
just checking in.
depending on where you are in the marketplace. I mean, depending on what state you're in, depending on where that's coming from, you know, you may or may not know what's exactly in it, you know, and it could very well not be truly what it represents to be, you know, and I think there's issues with anything that's not being fully tested. And then, you know, I also have an issue with anything that's not full plant extract. I mean, I think that when you start just getting a THC run and that's all you're running out and you're blowing off all the other, and by blow it off, what I mean is when you're running, you know, high pressure CO2, supercritical CO2 is fast becoming the most common method, right? As opposed to like butane. Most states now are really wanting to shy away from butane extraction. So you're seeing a lot of supercritical CO2.
I see that being dangerous, butane extraction.
It can be. Yeah, it can be for sure.
Not healthy at all. I can't really see it.
I mean, as long as it's you know, made properly, right? As long as it's handled properly, perfectly safe, you know, perfectly manageable. You know, as far as I understand that process to be. But, you know, most of the time what we're seeing is supercritical CO2. That's what's most popular. They're getting, you know, high yields and things like that from it. And, you know, when it's done in that way and there's just nothing but THC left and things like that in the extract, I think there's a problem with that. The other thing I think is really crazy is a lot of these groups, they're making an extract only to add back in terpenes that were not natural to the plant material they started with. So they'll add limonene back into the vape pen or the cartridge to give it that lemony flavor, but that wasn't from the plant that they started with in the first place. They just bought the terpenes.
It's like flavoring.
It's like flavoring. Yeah, it's like putting flavoring in a cake, right? And it's just, that seems insane to me, you know.
Because you have all these e-cigarette now. And they can probably pretty much put any of those liquids into it.
And I've been there and I've been like, oh, what's that little? Oh, that's some limonene that I bought, you know, the other day to throw in my new extract run that I'm doing. It's just like, well, why don't we try to get it from the plant itself? Oh, well, you know, and so whether it's they don't have the sophistication to run the machinery to that level to be able to do those multi-level runs. You know, the way I understand it, again, I'm not an extract guy. I just nerd out on it when I'm in these facilities, is, you know, they can do subcritical runs to get some of the more volatile compounds out, right? So that they don't end up destroying it with the time, heat, and pressure that they're using to extract, you know, like the THC runs. So, you know, I think it's really, you know, in an unregulated market, or, you know, if it's, you know, gray market product, you know, it's buyer beware to some degree. I like to think that people aren't ever doing anything intentionally stupid or bad, you know, and you know, like sometimes it's just like you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, we certainly saw it where in states that didn't have super strict laws or super strict regulations around pesticide use, you know, folks were using pesticides that they just knew how to use. And they didn't really recognize that those could be detrimental. And they weren't doing it maliciously. They were doing it because that's what they knew how to use, you know, was a certain type of product. And then the state came in and said, hey, you can't use that anymore. And there's a bit of a scramble to figure out, well, what do I do now? What do I use now? You know, and that's part of what we do too, is work with growers on that type of stuff for their pest management stuff. Yeah. Make sure that the product's safe.
You work closely with all these states, like state supervisors or any of those guys?
You know what? I don't. There's a gentleman in our company that heads up the integrated pest management division. He has more to do with stuff like that, mainly because we, you know, state to state, will oftentimes have to get our products registered.
Right.
You know, so
it's a conservation issue.
Yeah. So we've got a powdery mildew product, for instance, that's an organic product, and we've had to get that registered in multiple states because sometimes states will come out and they'll say, okay, anything on this approved list that we already have established for some other product, you can use that on cannabis or in cannabis grows, but it won't include something like our product. So then we have to do the process of getting that straightened out. But I don't really have a whole lot to do with that now.
Right on. Wow.
I'm going to change the directions again.
You always do.
I do. Well, going back to like the being federally legal, what do you think? Roughly, do you think that's going to happen? If so, like when do you think that might come down the board?
I think eventually it's going to happen. I think that's kind of I like to think that that's probably where things are headed.
Right.
Again, especially once lawmakers and the powers that be start to look around and go, okay, the sky's not falling, the children are okay. There's money to be made. It can be regulated. It can be safe. When it's going to happen, I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk lately. I don't know if you guys watch
Gary V.
V.
Watch him every day.
He's like famous. I'm not fucking Nostradamus over here, and neither am I. So, when it's going to happen, I don't know. I think that it will most likely happen, that there will be some significant change somewhere near the end of the current federal term, right? So whether the current,
when the fossils get out of there,
yeah.
right?
Well, no, I don't. I think whether Trump is reelected or not, I think that's about when we'll see that shift of some nature. Now, he recently, and it was like he was getting on Air Force One or something. I don't even know the context. I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it. I just kind of heard it as background noise that he was asked about I believe has been called the Careers Act. Which has, and I haven't really looked at that a ton, but would offer some relief to the banking issues, and I believe would reschedule as well. But somebody asked him about whether or not he supported that, and in a roundabout kind of answer, he said he would support that. So there's definitely movement at the federal level,
but he can't tell the truth to begin with. So
and that's the thing is, who knows, right? I mean, Who knows whether that's true or not? I have no idea. But I mean, what I would ultimately like to see is that, it doesn't just get, willy-nilly rescheduled in such a way that now none of the companies that are already in the industry can play, because all of a sudden it's a Schedule II or some other type of narcotic that has to be, go through FDA and go through testing and go through all this kind of stuff, but rather just completely descheduled, treat it like alcohol and tobacco, regulate it like alcohol and tobacco. And then ultimately what I would love to see is, a framework or a model across the country where if you want to be a home brewer, like you can now, if you want to brew a keg of beer in your basement, you're allowed to brew a keg of beer in your basement. If you want to be Nail Creek, you can be Nail Creek. If you want to be FX Matt, you can be FX Matt. If you want to be Coors, you can be Coors, right? And so I'd like to see the same thing where if you want to grow 4 plants under one light in your basement, you're allowed to do that. I mean, I would say there has to be some rules and regs to it. You can't just hook up a high pressure metal halide, sodium or HPS light in your basement illegally or shoddy or whatever. Like, that's just not safe. But be able to do that, be able to have a small little mom and pop grow that services its own little couple of dispensaries, or maybe has a adult use storefront or something of that nature. Things that they're experimenting right now in California and Colorado. They're I don't know if it went through fully or not, but I know in Colorado, one of the first 1 or 2 facilities that we're trying to do on-site consumption, we're going through like a licensing process. And I know, in Cali, and it's still a bit gray out there, but there's, on-site consumption facilities out there as well. So, like a bar for consuming cannabis. So, I'd love to see that. And again, just see it, regulated like beer, where you have options. And if you want to go in and buy a 6-pack of the least expensive product, and that's what you like, or that's what you can afford, or that's, what you choose to indulge with, go for it.
But
and
that's how it is at some of these in like Vegas. It's like that.
But each state has different laws, right now, regarding the marijuana laws. They each have their own.
Everyone, yeah.
So if they were to be federally legal, they'd almost have to come up with a nationwide plan, right?
Well, that's the thing, is that they'd have to say how it's being regulated. And then I think the states would still have some say in that. Obviously, I mean, they do with alcohol, right?
Yeah.
So, in some states you can't buy alcohol on Sunday, and some states you can buy alcohol 24/7. So I think, that's kind of where I'd like to see it end up.
With an age limit.
Yeah, with an age limit. Oh, absolutely. Age limit, restrictions on driving. I mean, all those things I think need to be in place.
John Leone is checking. He says, do banks accept growers' deposits? Considering FDIC regulations, does the Fed tax growers?
Yeah, so everybody pays tax.
Probably
Death
the shit
and taxes. Death and taxes. So everybody pays tax. The IRS will absolutely accept tax money, both from cultivation facilities, from employees of cultivation facilities, all of that kind of good stuff. There's definitely some issues around the banking stuff. The Cole memorandum came out, 4 or 5 years ago. About that time frame. That's what really sort of opened things up a lot, right? Where they said, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Banker, if you have a client and you know this client is operating in a legal cannabis market as a licensed entity and they are depositing money with you, you may accept that money, but under these 12 roughly terms, that they're not, laundering money, they're not, selling to minors, they're not breaking the law in other ways, they're not trafficking out of state, blah, 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 blah. So that's what sort of opened up the floodgates. I will say that I've seen the banking industry out east be a little more friendly than the banking industry out west.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of the way things shook out. I think they just kind of, out west, I think they got into it earlier and got burned more frequently and had some negative experiences, trying to get into it early on. And then, but there's definitely banking available. And, as far as the other things go, I mean, I've definitely, had some experiences over the last, 5 years that I've been working in the industry and drawing, pay from the cannabis side of agriculture. And I've definitely had some interesting experiences with banks where I've been sort of asked certain questions that seemed odd. And, it was almost kind of like they were embarrassed to ask me like what I really did.
They're thinking you're Walter White.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking, but I've definitely had that happen. I mean, there's definitely, if they think, you're breaking the law, and this goes as far as I understand this for anything, and anytime they think you're breaking the law with your money or your banking, they do a SAR report, and file that report, and there's different levels of that. So there's definitely still some, issues around that. And I think that part of that Careers Act is set to change that and have some more clearly defined rules around banking, and so, I know the other thing with the banks is that they're kind of looking at you, especially as an employee, and they're like, you could be out of a job tomorrow, like if Sessions, farts wrong, or Trump just changes his mind and then Sessions enforces it, you could just be literally completely out of a job tomorrow. And so they're skittish, on that. And, it reminds me, I worked for, a guy locally who's a very successful restaurateur. And one day he said to me when I was getting started with Aquavita Farms and I was out looking for money and investors, and he said, I was trying to get him to invest. He didn't, but I was trying. He says, Mark, the banks aren't in the business of risk. And he was absolutely right, and I didn't quite get that
Solid
at that
advice.
time, but that the banks aren't in the business of risk. They're in the business of mitigating their risk, and that's how they stay successful. So, I certainly understand it. And the reality is that I know what I'm signed up for. I know, what the industry is, and I don't have the wool over my eyes. I think part of that too is just, I didn't come up in it in Cali or those areas. I remember one time years ago, I was out in Cali visiting a good friend, and we're walking through the streets of San Francisco, and we're just walking along, and all of a sudden I smelled like a pretty good bud, and I'm like looking around, and I look over, and he's got a doobie the size of my fist hanging out of his mouth, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, it's okay, man. I'm like, it's not. He's like, we're in California. I'm like, dude, you got to put that shit away. You're making me super nervous. I'm like, where we live, like, you're going to jail for that. You know what I mean? And so, like, there was just more of a prohibitionist, lingering, I think, especially out here in New York or wherever, where, it just makes you a little bit more open to the fact that, hey, it's not all legal at this point. There are still some issues with it.
Right. It does take a little bit to get used to when you go to like a Colorado or a Vegas and everybody's just puffing up everywhere. Yeah. Like, you kind of get hesitant, become paranoid all of a sudden, like, hey, you can't do, like, going to Vegas in February, we go to check into the hotel room, and right in the lobby, there's a kid puffing out a joint right there. I'm like, you could do that right here? He goes,
you really can't.
Make them stop me.
Yeah,
and they didn't. Nobody said anything.
Yeah, but the thing is I mean, like, in Vegas, for instance, I mean, like, the Gaming Commission, they've really been, not a huge fan.
I can imagine.
And, the thing is that, they've even put out, certain, I know that over the last couple of years, I've attended MJ BizzCon down there for the last, 4 years or something. And now every time you go in, they're like, really stressing like no consumption on any properties. At the now it's in the event center down there. It's such a huge event. Like 18,000 people showed up last year. They're like really stressing like no consuming here, no consuming at the hotels. The hotels when you're coming into them now are mentioning it and stuff. And so, it's definitely, an issue. And, I can kind of understand that. I mean, it's like, here in New York, you can't walk down the street with you can't walk down Varick with a UC in your hand. Right. Yeah. That's the law. Right. And so that's fine. I can understand that.
Plus, they're in the business of selling alcohol, too, keeping people drunk, playing more games. If you're smoking a doobie, you're going to be like, fuck this, I'm going to go see a show.
Taking away from the games.
I don't know. I mean, you go down
to the
for
buffet.
a cannabis convention. Everybody's out there gambling.
True.
You know what I mean? Everybody's doing that. So, it's part of going to Vegas.
I can imagine the restrictions, though, and everything going on. With, like you mentioned, the Gaming Commission, and it just got to be the alcoholic beverage control board, the ABC board. I mean, they've all got a lot of hoops.
Yeah, I mean, and they've all got concerns around, that it's going to poach from their business or whatever. I mean, I think there's room in the pool for everybody.
They're going to do it anyway. If they're going to do it there, or they're just going to go out to their car and do it.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing is that they're just all it's doing by legalizing the market is bringing it out of the shadows, right? I don't really think that. And that there's going to be some huge spike in consumption.
Although I do meet a lot of people who've never smoked, and they're like, well, once it becomes legal, I'll smoke. And I'm thinking, well, what's your point there? You know what I mean? Like, you do illegal shit all day long, but like you're worried about, taking a puff now. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's a lot of people like this, and once it turns legal, they're going to give it a try.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard the same thing, and I don't know. I mean, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I mean, I don't think that there's been any data yet out of any states that have gone adult use that say that there's all of a sudden this massive spike, or even, less strictly regulated, like California, where it's a less strictly regulated medical program, up until now when it changed. And I just don't know if you're going to see this massive spike. I mean, it's almost like, it's almost like the whole thing when I talk about how I'd love to see it where you could have a home grow, you could have a small scale, you could have a large scale, whatever you want to do, whatever you got the money for, the interest in. A lot of other growers and other investors have said to me, like, well, we don't want everybody to have a home grow. And I'm like, well, why not? They're like, well, because then they won't buy from us. I'm like, bullshit.
You can grow tomatoes at home.
Do you think, but yeah, you can grow tomatoes at home. It's not going to stop you from going to Hannaford's, right? On the regular. You can brew beer at home. I mean, no, I don't think any of the bars around here are like sitting there going, geez, if only you couldn't brew beer at home, we'd be successful. And I've never heard a bar owner say that, right? Because why? Because it's a pain in the fucking ass to do that stuff.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
After you've just worked a 40, 50, 60, whatever you work hour week, right? Busting your ass. Are you really, you have to have some kind of passion for it.
Right, it has to be a hobby or something.
It's just a small percentage of people that have that kind of passion for something like that, So I don't think it's a major issue. And I think it's similar to people that are like, well, I'll try it when it's legal. Well, okay, great, And I think that there's some older folks, in the generation ahead of us, or what have you, that, stopped, using cannabis, at some point, used it at one point, stopped, right? Because they had families and they had responsibilities and they wanted to follow the law. And there was certainly a dogma or whatever you call it around using it. It was socially unacceptable in certain circles or whatever reason, right? Or they just grew up and, calmed down on all the partying in general. And then they get to a certain point in life and they're like, hey, I could use, the medical benefits of this now, right? They're dealing with, arthritis and pain, or they're dealing with, whatever it may be, illness or something that they can use cannabis to help treat symptoms of. And so they're revisiting it now that that opportunity is available. I mean, I was talking to a woman the other day who was talking to me about how her mother, who's in like her 80s, that she goes to a dispensary in Syracuse on behalf of her mother to get her some products, some tincture that she can use to help with pain that she's having, and that's prescribed by a doctor because she's sick. And, and I think that's a great thing. I think it's a lot safer than all the other alternatives.
It is great, but they got to drive all the way to Syracuse. You know what I mean? Just to get this. And it's kind of high priced. And, it's kind of bullshit. It should be more readily available, and it should be available in the flower form in this state. It's a shame that, they got to drive.
Well, and that's the law. I mean, that's the law that got written and passed. And, the governor had a lot to do with that. I mean, Diane Savino and Gottfried, I think it was, who co-sponsored and co-wrote that bill that became a law. Cuomo came in, after the fact and really, sliced and diced it and really limited it. And now, they had the first 5 licenses that they awarded for cultivation, and then they each get I think it's 4 dispensaries that they had to scatter around the state, and it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense the way they got scattered around. But now there's 5 more that are coming online.
Okay.
And so, and I believe it was the same deal. They each got 4. So I would imagine that, the state may have worked with them, hopefully, to scatter them out a little bit better and start to get them into some underserved or unserved areas of the state, because there's definitely those pockets that exist. And then I think as well, what you'll eventually see is that they allow flower in some form. I mean, I know that, I think it's Connecticut, where you can essentially buy flower, but it's been ground, right? And it says on it, do not smoke or something like that. Supposed to put it in an herbal vaporizer or something is what the intention is. But they, I think there's something like that in the works here. So it's, it's baby steps, and again, I mean, the one thing, I remember when Cuomo was coming out on that, and he said, well, you can't tell me that smoking anything is good for you. It's a hard one to argue, right? I mean, anytime you're inhaling smoke into your lungs, whether it's, whatever its source is, whether it's off of a tailpipe or a 6-foot graphics, okay, you know what I mean? Your body wouldn't react so violently to it at times if it was super wanting that to happen to you.
Yeah.
Just my own theory on it, but at the same time, it is the most effective form of delivery. Yeah.
Is that how the states work it? If they give you a growing license, they assign you dispensaries?
Depends on every state. It depends on every state.
In Colorado, I feel like Colorado's more of a free-for-all. You could just
Colorado's
buy from any of the vendors.
Exactly. It's a little bit more of an open market. They originally set it up where cultivation licenses and dispensary licenses were separate. Then they changed the law, and they all had to combine with each other, basically. Then they changed it again, and they were all able to separate. So you can, in that state, you can own a dispensary and not own a grow. You can own a grow and not own a dispensary. You can do extraction only. That's another separate license you can get. And every state's different. In New York, they happen to be paired together, where it was cultivation, dispensary, extraction, all paired together. And then in others, it's not. So.
Chase Stevens says, you're old when you refer to a 6-foot graphics.
Oh man, that was killer. I can remember we actually went to Burlington. Back when I was living up in Placid, we went out to Burlington and bought from one of the head shops out there this 6-foot glass, and then we bought an extension for it that had this rubber grommet that you put on it, and you'd have to get on a ladder to use the damn thing. I always think, if we, my friends and I should just speak for myself, but if I had put half the effort into, going to college at Paul Smith's as I did into finding unique ways to get all fucked up, I would have been, I don't know,
PhD.
the president of the damn college or something,
I think 6-foot graphics is a good name for a jam band.
Yeah, it would be.
That's a great name for a
That
jam
would be a great name for a jam band. Nice. Yeah. Mark, before we get out of here, give people information and how they can get in touch with you, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, so I've Instagram. I mean, that's pretty much the only social media that I really am active on.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I'm lazy, and so it's Cannabis Systems Guy. Used to be Cannabis Sales Guy, and I changed that up when I changed what I was doing for the company and within the industry. And then they can check out the website urban-grow.com. Mentioned that earlier. That's the company website. And that's kind of where all the information is. And then, of course, Urban Grow itself has all the social media platforms going on.
Website too.
Yeah. Yep. And then, ton of stuff on YouTube, ton of videos, interviews, things that I've done in the past, not only with the company I'm with now, but things in the past like Aquavita and things like that.
Yeah. You were doing the indoor farming for a while too.
Yeah. Back when.
Feels
like 100 years ago. It wasn't that long ago,
You getting ready for this move though? You're leaving Monday?
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah, I'm out Monday, flying out there. Then I gotta come back and get my dogs and go back out again. But I've been telling people that I'm on the final leg of the tour.
Yeah.
Going around trying to see everybody, trying to have dinner with people. And going out with Angela and Eric the other night, trying to just catch up with people and anybody that I can run into that I just have really appreciated. Like you, I was glad to run into you at the Stanley.
Yeah.
Hardest working guy in Utica over here with 10 different gigs going on all the time. Always running from one to the next.
But all my jobs are fun. I had to explain that to somebody the other day. They're like, well, what do you do? Well, I have Disruption Network, but I also work for Creative Concerts, and I work at the Stanley, and I do all these fun concerts and stuff. And they're like, man, how do you do it? I'm like, trust me, I like it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Fun,
I mean, it's
man.
awesome. You know, love what you do, and
thanks, man. I love what you do.
Yeah, thanks, man. And
yeah, keep doing what you do,
thanks.
so we can do what we do.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. And yeah, so just trying to get around, see people before I leave, and then we'll be out there, and we're looking forward to the move, but we're definitely gonna miss Utica, miss the Mohawk Valley. Like I said, it's been my home for the last 15 years. The last 12 of which have been same house in Whitesboro, and just met so many great people and had so many great experiences and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely miss it. Definitely feeling a little bit sad, excited for the next phase, in my life, my family's life, but sad to be leaving the area. Just tons of great people. Like I just can't say enough.
When they bring the Cannabis Cup to Utica, in 2020,
coming back for sure. Yeah, we'll be coming in strong for sure for the 2020 Cannabis Cup in Utica.
Right in Utica,
New York. Awesome.
You heard it.
Yeah, at the Odd.
Well, you're moving to Denver or
just outside of Denver? Yeah,
okay.
Erie, which is like northwest suburb.
There's a lot of upstate New York folks in that area.
Oh yeah,
I've got a ton of friends in Denver.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great area. It's beautiful. Weather's nice. A lot of opportunity out there. It's a wonderful place. So we're looking forward to it. But like I said, it's hard not to reminisce and just be appreciative for what this area has given me too.
Well, with the power of the internet, you can keep in touch with everybody.
Keep in touch with everybody. Keep apprised of everybody.
We'll have to do a road trip to come see you.
Yeah, come out there.
Can't say Denver without the D.
Disruption Network. Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. I like that.
Do a road trip and come out there. And I mean, I think I think I said this before. You guys should check out some of these shows and stuff that are going on.
I know.
There's even stuff like closer. You don't have to go all the way out west, but there's some cool stuff closer and. We'll stay in touch. I'll keep an eye on you guys.
Yes.
And definitely tune in when I can.
And I'm definitely keeping an eye on you.
Right on. Appreciate it, man.
Before we get out of here, Mark, are you interested in? Well, you won't be in town, but we got this eating competition going on.
An eating competition.
Yes.
I always wanted to do an eating competition, but I've never participated. What will you be eating?
Well, this is called the Goliath Sandwich. And it's a sandwich that they make at Oh Baby's Gourmet Sandwich Shop.
Gotcha.
It's over 4126 Oneida Street in New Hartford, on the border of Utica and New Hartford over there.
Yep.
Great joint. We're going to be there Tuesday, June 26th. And we're going to have we're looking for competitors. We do have a couple already lined up, but we want more.
I think Eric. Do you got Eric?
If Eric would be in it, that'd be great. Well, we could probably eat.
I think that kid could kill us up.
Destroy it. Tell them what it is. It's a triple sandwich.
It's a triple sandwich, but it's their regular. You choose between the All-American or the Broheim. And just to give you an idea what the All-American is, it's lettuce, tomato, onion, hot cherry peppers, mayo, mustard, hickory bacon, chicken breast, turkey, ham, and American cheese.
Oh my God!
Triple that. That's everything you just
triple
said.
that. So it's like this high and this wide.
That sounds good.
And the other one is the Broheim, which is lettuce, tomato, grilled onions, roasted peppers, hot peppers, mayo, Gouda cheese, roast pork, baked ham, roast beef, and honey mustard dressing. Wow.
Triple size.
That's
triple
right
size.
there.
Not only that, but you got to finish off a basket of fries, and you get to wash it down with a choice of a 2-liter bottle of soda or a 40-ounce of beer.
What do you win? What's the prize?
You do get first. The main prize is you get the golden ticket from Oh Baby Sandwich Shop.
Okay.
So you get like Oh Babies for throughout the year.
Oh, nice.
You get a couple tickets to get the let out the Saranac Brewery on August 10th.
Nice.
You get a bunch of accolades from Oh Babies. Is like your picture on the wall, and right now that spot on the wall is empty. Because what we're doing is we're trying to set the bar for this challenge.
Sure.
Because they were coming in like trying to do it at a half hour, but a half hour is probably not long enough.
No way.
So we're trying to set the bar to see what the bar is going to be set at.
Okay.
And that's going to happen on June 26th at Oh Babies.
Yeah,
so.
I think you got to get reach out to Eric on that one.
We should. We should.
We're going to do his challenge. He's got to come do our challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right,
I like that.
If I was going to be in town, I'd be there in a heartbeat. Sounds like a good time.
Challenge for challenge. We're going to be there broadcasting live. We bring our DJs in. We got games and prizes and a whole bunch of nonsense that we bring to the table when we do our live events.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's Tuesday, June 26th from 5 to 8 p.m. We're going to be hanging. It's our very first Grub and Gab because we got a new series called The Grub and Gab. And the very first one is going to debut at Oh Baby's Gourmet Sandwich Shop, 4126 Oneida Street in New Hartford, Tuesday, June 26th. So come on out, come hang out with us. We've got a lot of entertainment, a lot of prizes, a lot of giveaways, and a bunch of nonsense that we like.
Oh, yeah.
Including this eating competition, which we've been trying to do an eating competition since we launched. So
just
we're
reading
finally
that made me
getting it
hungry.
underway. I know, I'm hungry right now, too. Yeah, and then there's more accolades that get thrown in as well. She's going to give up a T-shirt, and I think you get your picture on the wall and some other things.
Yeah, we're also going to do a cornhole toss tournament. We're not going to actually play cornhole. It's like we're going to set it out a good distance, and it's $1 per bag to try it, and then the proceeds go to Jam for John, who one of her employees who developed cancer.
Okay,
it's a fun for them too.
Yeah,
so
great.
A lot of good things, a lot of fun. It's just gonna be a blast.
Yeah, sounds like
it's gonna be a good time. Yeah, so we want to see a bunch of our friends that are out there looking to support RD. I want to remind everybody they can listen to this podcast and previous podcasts of EC Radio and all the content that we have here at the D at DisruptionNetwork.net. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our iTunes channel as well as Google Play and Spotify. And we're pretty much everywhere. Any kind of social media platform, we're in it. So you can find the D pretty much anywhere. So
we haunt your nightmares.
Yes, we do. Tomorrow's guest, Adam Spirlozzi, author and world traveler. Do you know Adam by any chance?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah. He's an interesting cat. And the only reason why he's in town is because he had to get evacuated because of the volcano in Hawaii.
Oh,
yeah.
And he lives like right at the foothills of that volcano that erupted. And he had to get evacuated, so he came back to Utica. We're going to talk to him about that and all the world travels that he's done. And he's written a couple books. And Adam's a really, really creative type of guy, but he's out there.
Nice. That'll be a good interview.
He fits right in with the rest of us.
Tune in tomorrow.
So that's going to be tomorrow. And then next week we've got Gina's going to come in and talk about Summerfest. And Paul Buckley's going to be in the house talking about filming movies in Utica because there's
nice. We were talking a little bit about that the other day.
Yeah, and that sparked me to hit him up.
Oh, God.
So, yes. Mark, one more time, good luck with everything in the move.
Thanks,
and great to see you and
good
keep in touch.
Guys.
And,
yeah, absolutely.
And definitely.
Great stuff, man.
It was
really
great show. Great show. And do me a favor, too. Can you please share this when you're all done? And if everybody else who's watching this, just click the share button and it'll help us all out.
Absolutely.
Very much so. We'll see you tomorrow, people.
You know what the hell you're listening to? It's EC Radio.
We are a generation of lost masculinity, and we got to start getting it back. No matter if you're straight or gay, no matter if you stick it in the front or you stick it in the rear. For the love of our sons, we've got to stick it in there like a man.
EC Radio.
Never you mind what I'm making. You should spend some time taking a personal inventory of what you're doing for the betterment of society.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.